Good evening, Thousand Oaks. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for March 25th, 2024. For viewers watching at home, some members of the public may be participating via video conference or teleconference. Next, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will the recording secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Ferris?
Here.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut?
Here.
Commissioner Link is absent. Commissioner McMahon?
Here.
Chair Lanson?
Here. Next, written comments, announcements, supplemental packets. Tonight we have with us Deputy Community Development Director Fabiola Melliker. Are there any written comments, announcements, or continuances?
No announcement and no supplemental packets have been submitted.
Next, we have public comment. Do we have any public speakers?
No.
We will then skip that. And also, we don't have a consent calendar for tonight, so we will go to, or a public commission public hearing. So we'll go to the department report, which is item 8, for which tonight we have a department report from the Public Works Department on the Climate Environmental Action Plan MI 2606. Presenting on behalf of the staff is Sustainability Division Manager Helen Cox.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm here this evening to talk about our Climate and Environmental Action Plan, or CEAP, and I'm joined by Public Works Director Cliff Finley and Senior Analyst John Brooks. I'll start with a brief history of how we got here. In 2014, development of a climate action plan was among the city's top 10 priorities at the citywide year-long Visioning 2064 process. Serious work on the CEAP began in 2021 when City Council established preliminary greenhouse gas reduction targets, and we held a series of workshops to discuss possible strategies with an appointed 21-member stakeholder group that broadly represented the community. These strategies were presented to Council in fall 2021. There was a hiatus in CEAP activity in 2022 due to other priorities, namely the solid waste transition and then the drought. And so work on the CEAP resumed in 2023 when we conducted outreach at Arbor Earth Day. For the rest of 2023, we were again on hold while the General Plan Environmental Impact Report review took place. However, following adoption of the General Plan in December 2023, we resumed our CEAP efforts. The delay allowed us to incorporate the land use map and growth assumptions from the General Plan and ensure that the CEAP addresses policies laid out in the General Plan. We are now in the public comment period for the CEAP and its accompanying CEQA document, an initial study negative declaration prepared by our consultant Rincon. The deadline for submission of public comments is April 23rd. The activities listed here provide opportunities for public input. The CEAP is organized into the sections listed here. A separate technical appendix is provided. Excuse me. A dedicated website has been launched that provides an overview of the plan, GHG emissions, and lists all the strategies and measures with an easy means for the public to provide plan comments. That is at toclimateaction.org. The plan is arranged into strategies, measures, and actions, as shown here. Strategies are divided into 4 focus areas: building energy, which includes electricity and gas use in buildings; transportation emissions, which are modeled using the General Plan land use map; solid waste, and water sections. Also, there is an environmental section and an adaptation and resilience section. There are multiple measures listed under each strategy. Most show projected emission savings, but supporting measures and environmental measures, where there is no available data to quantify or verify these, do not list those savings. Our greenhouse gas reduction targets are shown here. They are aligned with the state's, but correct for the city's 2010 baseline year, as opposed to the state's 1990 baseline year, because 2010 is the furthest back in time for which we have reliable data. Here you can see the breakdown of our emissions. Transportation is the largest sector at 63%, followed by natural gas at 21%, after which are electricity at 6% and smaller sectors like solid waste and water. Since 2010, community emissions have fallen by 27%. The main driver of these reductions has been enrollment in Clean Power Alliance starting in 2019. Some emission reductions in the electricity sector have also resulted from the overall greening of the electricity grid, and in the transportation sector from improved vehicle fuel efficiency. The community started to receive electricity supplied by Clean Power Alliance in early 2019. The program offers 3 different renewable energy options, shown here on the left. Council selected 100% renewable electricity as the default supply, and community participation at this level has remained high, at over 80%. For those choosing to remain with SCE, the electric grid is slowly greening, so an increasing proportion of their electricity will come from renewable resources over time. The availability of zero-emissions clean electricity across the community makes shifting energy use from natural gas to electricity the most impactful way of reducing greenhouse gas emissions in buildings. Projected emissions are shown here in a business-as-usual scenario, i.e. one in the absence of a climate action plan. This includes growth under the city's general plan and current state regulations regarding vehicle fuel efficiency and building standards. This shows that emissions will continue to fall, reaching a 36% reduction by 2030 and 41% by 2045. These reductions, however, fall short of our targets. Here, we show the projected emissions under the successful implementation of the measures in the CEAP. These show improved greenhouse gas emission reductions, reaching the 42% target by 2030. The projections are conservative in the sense that they do not include expected reductions from supportive measures such as outreach. Projections show a 59% reduction by 2045, which does fall short of the 85% reduction target by that year. The CEAP will be revisited every 5 years, providing an opportunity to update projections and strategies in the light of new state legislation, regulations, and building codes, and informed by tracking data from annual emissions data and the key performance indicators. I'll now highlight a few of the strategies and measures from the 62 that are listed in the CEAP. As I mentioned previously, switching from natural gas to electric power will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Since builders are now required to make homes electric ready, they can save costs by installing electric heating equipment and appliances rather than natural gas. Under the set of measures here, we would still allow builders to construct mixed fuel buildings, but they would need to add energy efficiency or electrification measures if they do that, so that they meet the equivalent greenhouse gas savings. Note that electrification of new buildings is already happening voluntarily by developers in the city and is becoming the new normal. Several recent projects have chosen to go all electric, including T.O. Ranch, the Baxter site, and Hillcrest Affordable Housing. It is harder to tackle emissions in existing buildings. One of the proposed measures for existing buildings would offer a similar menu of efficiency and electrification measures, and these would be required for significant additions or renovations. That menu of options is known as the flexible compliance path, which is what we're proposing for mixed fuel buildings. It was developed by the California Energy Codes and Standards team and offers local governments a relatively easy way to tackle emissions in existing residential buildings that can be customized to the local housing stock and the local climate. There are a host of programs, rebates, and incentives available to residents for energy efficiency improvements and electrification of homes, but these can be hard to access and navigate. Under the proposed Energy Ambassador program, we will provide one-on-one assistance to community residents on accessing and applying for these programs, beginning with low-income and multifamily properties. In concert with this outreach, we're planning to deploy an online web tool that will provide customized assistance on costs, benefits, and resources for potential residential property improvements. To reduce energy use in city operations, we're looking at a transition to LED street lights throughout the city. This would be conducted with careful consideration of our residents on the look and feel of the city. Turning now to transportation, there are two principal strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. One is to reduce vehicle miles driven using smart growth policies that were laid out in the general plan. The other is to transition to clean electric vehicles. To aid and accelerate this transition to electric vehicles, we propose to increase the EV charging requirements for new multifamily and commercial developments above the minimum CalGreen levels. And secondly, to install public EV fast chargers in strategic locations throughout the city, with a particular emphasis on supporting existing multifamily residents. The city will use the $6 million of funding we recently obtained from the federal government as part of a county's $12 million grant to do this work. The city continues to reduce organic waste through separate collection of that waste stream and through composting. A new activity will be the addition of a food refrigeration and storage facility to support our local food recovery organizations that collect food from generators like supermarkets and restaurants and deliver it to those in need. One of the many environmental strategies in the CIAP is to phase out the use of gas-powered leaf blowers in the city due to their noise and air pollution. This has been an issue that we've been asked about by many residents for some time, and there are now many quiet, clean electric alternatives available. Some examples of adaptation and resilience strategies are listed here. We need to make sure that there is easy access to clean, resilient battery backup power supply throughout the city and reduce our reliance on diesel generators. It will be important to track and report emissions. We plan to do this using a staff-developed dashboard to show key performance indicators and through the largest global emissions reporting platform, the CDP, or Carbon Disclosure Project. Thank you for your time and attention. We'd like to remind everyone to access the CIAP through the new website, toclimateaction.org, and we're available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. I think there'll probably be some questions here from commissioners. Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. Thank you for your overview of the action plan. I'm looking at, from the staff report, there's the business as usual chart, which is if we don't do anything, we're not going to hit our goals. And if we look at figure ES2, which is on page 7 of the staff report, is what we're looking at roughly 2045 is that if we implement the plans as proposed within the action plan, this is the anticipated reduction in GSGs that we can see?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So given this and what I'm sort of looking at here is that, as you've sort of described to us, electricity that moving to the Clean Power Alliance sort of has really dropped that down to very, very small amounts. So there's not much left there. We could go completely, and it's not going to make a dent in the other two things. Natural gas and was it the on-road transportation are still the big nuggets there. We can see that with the proposed plans for the on-road transportation, we could probably get it down, but even on its own would not get us down to meet our 85, even if everything else went to zero. And natural gas consumption looks like it's not changing at all. Are there more assertive proposals that the city can take to actually look at those two more aggressively?
Well, with regard to natural gas, this modeling does not really account for very much change in the natural gas use in existing buildings, because we're not proposing to mandate any changes there except if people come in for permits for major alterations. So for smaller renovations or changing out appliances, people don't often come or don't always come to the city and necessarily go through any particular permitting process. So we're really hoping that a lot of the outreach and the incentives and the rebate programs will incentivize people to make those changes at home voluntarily, particularly as those electric alternatives become sort of the choice as those new technologies are adopted. So we anticipate that there will be a reduction in that natural gas use in existing homes, but it's not reflected here because we don't have the data to model that, and it would just be speculative at this point. So that kind of addresses the natural gas. As regards to the transportation, these transportation emissions are projected based on the new state law that requires that 100% of light-duty vehicles, new light-duty vehicles sold in California will be zero emissions by 2035. And so what we did was we used existing vehicle turnover rates, and then from 2035 onwards, we assumed that the new vehicles would be replaced, or the vehicles would be replaced at that rate, but they'd be replaced with electric vehicles. Now, if other things happen, like the transition in the heavy-duty vehicles, or if there's a more accelerated transition to electric vehicles, that timeline could also accelerate.
Just to clarify then, I guess the figure S2 is with the business as usual, but does that also include the dynamics of what would go on outside of the city? And the figure ES2 includes the programs, or you're sort of describing the hoped for turnover of electrical, right. That's kind of within, we're sort of taking credit for that as a city program.
In a way, it includes the existing state mandates and the items in the CAP. It doesn't foresee or speculate on any future regulations that might come out. So, increasingly the California Building Code has become more aggressive in terms of energy efficiency, and it may also become more aggressive in terms of the use of natural gas, but we're not speculating on that. So basically the projections are based on what current state law is and then what the new measures added by the CAP would be.
And just to clarify where the state law thing, that's in ES2, not in the business as usual one?
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
that's what I was trying to get
yeah.
at. Like, is it actually baked into the business as usual one, or is it are we counting for it? So
yeah, there's one nuance there. So existing state law is baked into the business as usual with the caveat that scenario does not include the accelerated transition to electric vehicles. And the reason is that it's based on a model that's used by CARB for vehicle emissions. And that model was produced in 2021 ahead of the state law that now mandates the sale of electric vehicles by 2035. So It includes fuel efficiency, and it includes the building code standards, but it doesn't include that accelerated transition to EVs,
Okay, which we're including in.
which we're including in the,
Okay.
ES2.
Okay, thanks. I may have some other questions, but want the other commissioners to have a chance.
Thank you, Commissioner Ferris. Other commissioners? I have just a few, kind of in line with what Commissioner Ferris was going at. It seems this process, the state is looking bottom up, and it seems to me top down is really more of a way. So, like, for instance, I've read someplace somewhere, which is a horrible thing to start a sentence with, but that solar panel installation was down 80-something% by virtue of the change in the net metering contracts. I'm assuming that's where we're going to get off natural gas to electricity, but if the state doesn't provide those incentives, it obviously diminishes that capability, I'm assuming.
Yes, certainly the incentive for residents or commercial to voluntarily put solar panels on existing buildings has been largely cut into by the new tariffs. So and when the CPUC approved the request by the utilities to change the tariff from net metering, that largely did away with the incentive that existed for people to put solar panels on their buildings. However, the state building code does require that for all new buildings, they do offset their electricity use by solar. So that's true for existing residential. It has to be 100% offset. For multifamily and for commercial buildings, it's a partial offset. So those mandates still exist, regardless of what's happened with the tariff. We don't have anything in these projections that really looks at adding more solar beyond that.
Well, I think you pointed out in the report that, again, as we've said many, many times, we're kind of out of land to build a whole lot of new things. So it's literally going to be spot issues with regard to some of the projects that may be multi-use or multi-purpose that we've done, but it's really not something we can actually end up having a whole bunch of new projects because there's no room for us to build.
Correct. But even though the net metering arrangement at an individual property level, that incentive has been largely cut into, still the utility scale solar and wind projects are expanding at a very, very rapid rate. In fact, as fast as they can get interconnection agreements to get on the grid. So the grid electricity is becoming more and more green. And already, as I mentioned, we subscribe, the default is 100% renewables here. And by 2045, the state mandate is that the grid will be 100% powered by renewables.
So and that kind of comes to my next question is there's a lot of targets, obviously, the state has in there that's built into a lot of things that, again, are dependent on a number of variables. What is the burden to the city if we don't hit these targets? Aside from climate change issues, I'm saying, is there any direct penalty that the state imposes?
No, we're not mandated to have a climate action plan. We're not mandated to reduce our emissions by a certain amount. It's becoming more and more a greater consideration in applying for funding at the federal level and at the state level.
The indirect punishment.
Right.
The last thing, and because it's down the street from my office, I know the transportation obviously is the largest group, and it looks like that's the hopeful expectation that would be affected the most. I noticed there's one hydrogen pump down the street from me. Is that an abandoned concept, or is that still something that people are looking at?
I think hydrogen is, it's largely regarded as a good fuel, but more for heavy-duty vehicles that where the batteries don't yet have the electric capacity to have the range that they need, on those heavy-duty vehicles. So hydrogen is very much being considered, but as I said, more for like heavy-duty vehicles. And there's kind of a long way to go on hydrogen with regard to the infrastructure, the pipeline infrastructure, the storage, et cetera.
And the psychology of people thinking what's happening there. You mentioned with regard to replacing lights with LED lights, is there any plan of how that would be implemented, or is that still kind of at the discussion stage?
Well, we are talking about a phased-in plan. Maybe we would do a section of the city first, or maybe we would do major arterials first and understand that look and get feedback before we committed 100% to doing the entire city. But that's still open for discussion.
One, like, bizarre question to connect it to something else. I know at some point we were supposed to have a lot of 5G, like 15,000 5G things throughout the city. Is that something is still on the plate, and something could be implemented together in terms of the lights and that kind of technology?
I don't know that they're really connected. It's not something that we've discussed as part of
Again, I
this.
always think outside the box sometimes. All right, so that's all the questions I have. Do you have any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. I appreciate the kind of getting the understanding of what we're trying to go with here. I find this very interesting. I'm really happy that we're able to review this plan in the city level. I had previously served a little bit on the Ventura County Client or Emergency Council. One of the things that they had to deal with there was that they can only provide regulations or any sort of programs outside of the city limits of the existing cities. They're still relying on the cities to kind of implement their own programs to be able to meet many of the objectives that we have. And I do remember one of the things we kept talking about is you can incentivize for new construction or potentially government buildings if they have them outside of in the county areas. But it's harder to provide programs that kind of encourage either incentivize or disincentivize existing buildings to kind of switch over. The thing I look at here, though, is that the natural gas one just, it seems like when I'm reading them, there's a lot of goals, there's a lot of city to consider requiring all electric for new construction. And I would say just a little bit of a counterpoint to the chair's comments. The general plan, actually, one of the things that was encouraged to do is take some of the existing areas, which might have been commercial, and make those mixed use, which gives the opportunity for there to be turnover for newer, efficient buildings that can actually, through city action, be able to help move it in the right direction. I think I come back and maybe full circle for some of these areas that we can be more assertive, given the dynamic that the city has put in place to make these changes to help better achieve some of the goals that we've set out.
Yeah, so when it's redevelopment or a major improvement, they would come through the city, and we do have that ability. However, we cannot mandate all electric construction at this point because of the Berkeley ruling that was held to be, what's the word, unlawful. They had to turn back on that. The city of Berkeley had an all-electric regulation mandate, and that was challenged in court and was overturned. So from a legal perspective, it's currently not possible to mandate that buildings be all electric, but through the current building code, the fact that all the new buildings have to be made completely electric ready means that it's really a lot cheaper and more efficient for builders to build them that way.
Is there some comment from the city attorney just to give an understanding of that?
Sure, Dr. Cox is absolutely correct. It was approximately 2021, the city of Berkeley adopted a mandate that all construction, including refurbishing of restaurants, et cetera, had to have all electric. Mm-hmm. Basically, it was a group of the restaurant owners who sued. It went up to the Ninth Circuit. Initially at the appellate court level, the court upheld the city ban, and then the Ninth Circuit actually overturned that. And basically, they found that the city of Berkeley was overstepping its bounds under federal law, that they were going too far to the authority that they had, because gas and electricity and those kind of things are also a federal issue. So that's why that particular ban was just too much, right? So as Dr. Cox is suggesting, there's incentives that we're trying to do. There's efforts to come to request when you have new construction to have these efficiency standards. But I think from listening to Dr. Cox over this period of time, I think one of the things we're going to be looking at is just continued cooperation with not just the state and federal, but with new developers to convince them to look at alternative means. And I think we've had some success, as you can see from some of these mixed-use developments where they have decided to go to more of a all green or as much green as they could to make it pencil out. So.
Yeah, thanks. I'm trying to figure out where that bound of, there's stuff you can't do at the top end, and then there's
I would
potentially
say certainly
more than
from,
just kind of hoping it happens.
right,
you
from
know,
the Ninth Circuit, certainly, and that was, I think, spring of 2023 when that came out, the Ninth Circuit decision came out. So I would certainly say an all-right ban is something that's going to be a no.
Sure.
Certainly trying to, as you said, kind of incentivize or be a little bit more aggressive in having them think about alternatives is going to be something that we can look at, of course. You also have to look at our building codes and what the state's going to do with the building code as we go to this new cycle. And finally, I would also say that just as we've done this with the transportation center, just including or adding more and more EV charging stations is going to be something that's going to be needed. Again, our state is way ahead of other states. And so it's something that is a challenge, but we are certainly doing, I think, with her team, doing everything we can to try to meet those goals.
One quick question, just from a logistics perspective. We're just being asked to receive the report and designate that it's not a project under CEQA, is that right?
That is absolutely correct. Tonight's a workshop. Ask the questions that you have, and these have been great questions, and then they're going to come back. They're going to bring this to City Council for a workshop, and then after that, they're going to come back again with a final version.
Got it, okay. I guess only because we're not going to do this, as my own personal view on it, I would like to ask that the council be more assertive in trying to understand how to help meet those objectives, given the constraints that we have. But again, that's my opinion only.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? We would normally go to public comment. I don't know if we have any public comment.
No.
Okay, so we'll skip that, so to speak. I don't know if staff, you want to have any further rebuttal to the process.
I just kind of want to, my name is Cliff Finley, I'm the Director of Public Works. Just kind of, I understand your frustration, Commissioner Ferris, a little bit, but I just want to remind the Commission, this is our first production of the CIAP. Part of this challenge and this job was to actually measure our existing GHG levels and create a baseline for the city of Thousand Oaks. We all know that if you want to get in shape, you got to start measuring. So we're hoping to get ourselves in shape. Also, that Exhibit ES2 sort of shows the state's problem, which is we're never going to achieve that goal without doing a little bit more. That's clear from that graph. So we're hoping to probably work with the state as they move forward, and we're confident that there'll probably be additional regulations, or they'll never achieve this goal. As it's shown here, we won't either with all our existing houses. We're not very different than many other communities in the state. So this is just a start. We're excited about it because we think it's a great start. There's been a lot of work involved, and so we're anxious to move forward, but we know this is just the beginning.
All right, thank you. With that, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Not that it's a public hearing. I'll close the process or discussion and open it up to discussion or a motion. Commissioner Ferris?
Happy to make a motion to receive the report, unless there's any.
And the second part.
And to declare that it is not a project under CEQA.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? I think we can go ahead and prepare us for a vote.
Commissioner Ferris?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Chair Lanson?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0, Commissioner Link absent.
Okay, we go on to item 9, which is AB 1234 reports. Any commissioner that has comments or a AB 1234 report, please let us know. Commissioner McMahon?
Yes, recently I went to a planning commission conference put on by the League of California Cities. There were sessions in a lot of really interesting subjects, including the information about new laws, how to hold a meeting in these contentious times, and the new role of the Planning Commission when the state has taken away so many of our of the things that we can do. So there was a lot of good information, and I was glad to have been there. That's it.
Sounds great. Any other 1234 reports or commissioner comments? I just have a brief one. It's interesting being chair here. The last time I did this for an extended period, I did it by myself. So this is nice actually having commissioners here and not having COVID. Next, we'll go to staff update. Ms. Meliker, are there any follow-up items, announcements, or upcoming issues?
Yeah. Tomorrow evening, City Council will be holding a public hearing on the comprehensive cancer center that is being proposed at 400 Rolling Oaks. And the proponent is HCA Healthcare Los Robles Hospital. Also, in department reports, we are going to have the general plan and housing element annual progress report, and the Jan specific plan initiation, and the second reading as well in consent agenda of the mixed use ordinance that the Planning Commission consider and recommended approval to City Council. On April 9th, we will have a public hearing on the municipal code amendments for shelters and other temporary housing and daycare. And also in the consent agenda, there will be a Jan-specific plan CEQA professional services agreement, assuming that City Council approves the initiation of the specific plan. Moving into items for upcoming Planning Commission meetings, we will not have a meeting on April 8th. We have no items. But on April 22nd, there will be a public hearing on a mixed-use development that is proposing 328 residential units, including 44 affordable units, 8,500 square feet of commercial uses, and the project is being proposed at 500 East Thousand Oaks Boulevard.
Thank you. And with that, at this point, even though it says you have nothing, we'll have to adjourn to April 8th, just in case something comes up. That's it. Good night, Thousand Oaks.